Happy 2017, everybody. Thank you for joining the 1% Better Project. What a year it's been. I chose my one word of the year, as I've been asking you guys to, and my word is fearless. And we've heard every single cliche about fear and whatnot. We know that fearless is not the absence of fear, but being scared and doing it anyway. Well, today's interview is no exception to that. One of my best friends, Kevin Wilson, I kind of forced him into interviewing me. He asked me some tough questions. He made me reflect. He really got me thinking about what I valued in 2016. And the end result was me being the most vulnerable I've ever been in public. So it's a long interview. I don't know if you'll stay the whole time. It actually gets pretty darn interesting at the end if you stick around. But the reality is, this is as much for me as it is for you guys. What I'm going to ask is that you think about having somebody do this for you. By Kevin giving his time and expertise to interview me, I was forced to wrestle with some tough questions about my vision, about my path, about things I'm thinking about. So here's my offer to you. Find someone that will interview you, and since you're one of the 1% Better Project insiders, I'll offer my own services. Free of charge. If you're interested in me interviewing you as a favor, as a gift, not for public consumption, just for you to listen to. On my commute home today, I listened to this whole interview and heard my own vulnerability, and it's very, very therapeutic. So I will never release it, but it would be something that I would give as a gift to you. If you'd like me to interview you about your 2017 plans, visions, etc., I'm available. Send me an email, send me a text, send me a DM, and I'm available. But let's spice it up just a little bit. Rather than free of charge, so I can tell my wife that I'm doing something good, I want to get involved in some more charity work in 2017. So let's make it very clean cut. I'll interview you for a small donation to a charity. And the charity of my choice is something close to home. It's the Believe in Bryn charity. It's a charity that focuses on mostly girls with Rett syndrome. It's a disease that's pretty ugly, but it doesn't stop a girl like Bryn. So if you go on Facebook, Believe in Bryn, they even have a Twitter account. Any donation, I don't care if it's $1 or $1,000, I will take my time and interview you, and we'll make a difference in somebody's life. So in the spirit of giving, I'll give a gift to you, interview you. We'll kind of shape the interview together, and you give a small donation to that charity, and we'll call it a day. It could be anonymous or public, whatever you think. On that note, thank you for listening to this interview. You'll get to know more about me. And I think if you look at it through the lens of how would this work for you, it'll be a very powerful exercise. So if we're going to look at renewal and ritual and attacking 2017, we're going to do it with fearlessness, vulnerability, and giving. Enjoy 2017. I hope you enjoy our talk.
Welcome, everyone, to this special edition of 1% Better Project, care of Joe Ferrero. This is the year in review. My name is Kevin Wilson. I am sitting here alongside Joey Jett, my best friend in the whole wide world, Joe Ferrero. Welcome, buddy.
How did I let you talk me into this?
I think you talked me into this, but we are comfortable being uncomfortable right now. I am in the driver's seat. You are the guest. I am going to do the best that I can. I apologize in advance to your regular and loyal listeners for having your velveteen voice come through. Well, I'm going to try to do my best, but we wanted to flip the script, and I am honored to be in this seat and sitting across from you to kind of dive into the past and the present and the future of Joe Ferrero.
Thanks, man. I said it on the 12 Days of Christmas. One of my favorite days of the year, New Year's Eve. When we were young, I was thinking about it today in the gym, and it actually sounds weird to say that out loud, being in the gym today. Everybody in the gym today was in unbelievable shape, and I was definitely not on that road. But like, if you're in the gym on New Year's Eve, like, you care about fitness.
Yeah.
So just looking at these people. But back to the matter at hand, the amount of crazy decisions that I made in my past life on New Year's Eve, trying to get ready. You got to go see Jimmy and ask for John at the door, and then go in ahead and pay $30 to this guy so he'll get you to Keith. The amount of crazy planning that went in, and then to be in a totally different place today. So I do love the absolute ritual. As a school teacher, I love the act of being able to start over. So kind of forcing myself in front of the mic with you today is something I relish, because you know me better than anybody, and I've watched my journey, which is far from done, but I wanted to put myself in a little bit of a vulnerable position today. So thank you.
No, thank you for the opportunity. And I told you this before we started taping, but it reminded me of the movie Big Daddy, where he's sitting on the stand and he calls to his dad to kind of grill him in the trial. And so I won't grill you as tough as his dad did, for sure, but I definitely want to unpack and use your terms a couple different things. And I'm fascinated by your journey, especially in 2016, and stuff that I really want to dive into. And kind of, like I said, the year in review. And earlier, I put out on Twitter what I was grateful for a few days ago. And for you, obviously, you're very grateful for a lot of things that have come into your life. And for those listening, I think that's the key to a leader. He's always grateful for what he has. And you're very grateful for everything that you have going on and you've had in the past. But kind of for the listeners, let's start at the beginning, so to speak. Like you said, we've known each other a long time, but paint us a picture, and you like the kid Joe 1.0 and Joe 2.0, 2.0 being 2016 and what you've done, and we'll dive into that later, but maybe explain a little bit real quick to bring everybody up to speed of kind of what's Joe 1.0 in summary for you.
It's tricky to think back because I don't know when everything started. That's one of the real reasons I wanted you to put me in front of the mic today, is that you kind of remember when we're very bad historians of our own life. When we look back, the eyewitness accounts are not very reliable. And oftentimes people that know us best and watch us from a distance get a chance to see what really happened. So I'm bad with dates and when things started, but I kind of lived multiple lives, right? So in the classroom for a number of years, I felt very energetic and passionate and excited and not afraid to get vulnerable and try things. And if they don't work, no problem. On the baseball side of things, I was a JV coach for 10 years, doing, I thought, more than maybe the traditional JV coach would do. But at the same time, getting very comfortable, right? There's just not a lot of extra effort that had to go into it. I wasn't being challenged. I wasn't being asked to expand my comfort zone. And, even with our podcast, the KWB Radio, we got very familiar with how to do the show. And a lot of it, quite frankly, was with your name on it and your brand being at risk. I played it safe very often. And I felt that I wanted to represent KWB and KW as a friend and as a business partner, so to speak. But you kept pushing me outside the nest. And a big part of it was your influence in a very simple, calm way to try to get me to expand my horizons, to get into uncomfortable positions. There's a lot of specific moments that I think about. But I would say that in general, more low energy, very comfortable. I mean, comfort was a huge, that's really the simplest way to say it. Comfort was a very, very big part of Joe 1.0. I mean, I used to laugh at people when they said, well, get outside your comfort zone, because it was amazing to be in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I grew up in a comfort zone in some ways. Food provided me a comfort zone. What I knew provided me a comfort zone. So getting outside of my comfort zone was just not a priority. So 2.0, I'm not 3.0. I'm not where I want to be, but certainly took to heart the phrase of expanding your comfort zone and getting outside of it. So that's a snapshot. I'm sure there's other specific things you want to ask me about, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely moments that made me feel very uncomfortable.
No, I think that's great. I think it's a great lesson for everybody listening to this, because at the moment where you step outside that comfort zone, I just had recently a conversation with a guy, a first round pick, the other day about that, pushing him outside that comfort zone. I said, when you start and take that one step out, that's when things begin to take off for you. So my question is, kind of, you talked about energy. What energy do you need to live at in order to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish on a daily basis? Do you have an energy level? Have you thought about it that way before?
Well, when I go back to my life as a player, I was at a level of energy 10 out of 10 during
And why
game.
was that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I felt that was the energy level that was called for. I felt that would be something that I needed. And I look back to it now and I think, like, I was trying to be a leader, and I felt that there's a shortage of vocal leaders. So I always thought, a lot of people say people lead by example, but I always thought that the vocal leader was somebody that was kind of maligned. No one ever says, very few people say, well, I'm a vocal leader. If you were to ask, 9 out of 10 kids, you say, are you a leader? They would say, I'm a lead by example guy. And I actually tried to do the opposite in my playing career. I tried to be a vocal leader, the one that would make claims and would call up meetings and would get things going. So as a player, I think about that. But I mean, looking back, I don't know that served me as best as possible from a performance standpoint. Now that we get into adulthood, I'm generally one of the higher energy people that I know while I'm in the moment. But there'd be a serious crash afterwards. I wasn't living a very fit lifestyle. I wasn't really making those kind of choices that would keep me going that way. So to your question, now it's an energy level that's almost like being in a zone where it doesn't feel hard at all to do. Like I don't have any struggle on a day-to-day basis living in this energy level. So a series of changes that I made with diet and habit and mental things, it's effortless at this point to get to the energy level that I need to be at.
So this energy level that you're at right now, can you walk us through, like in 2016, because I remember, let's back it up real quick before I ask you this question, because I remember almost a little over a year ago, the family, we were up and we visited you, we stayed at the house, and I was doing a KWB experience at our good friend Eric Holtz's place, Game On 13 in New York. So we took the liberties to go up and spend a few extra days after I got done, quote unquote, working, because I don't call what I do a job. And I remember you interviewed that day, the first day we got there. This is how much you trust us. We got to your house before your whole family did, so we were just hanging out in the Ferrero household.
Yeah.
You got back from the Bronxville High School interview. Now you're the head coach at Bronxville. Obviously, the interview went well. But I remember when you walked in the door, this is a little over a year ago, this is Joe 1.0, this is right before things start to happen, I feel. And you walked in and you looked like you just ran 10 miles. You were stressed out. You walked in and it was a familiar look I saw from you. You talk about that energy level. You were locked in for the interview. I know you were. And then you came home and you were spent. And you were, I will say it, I'll be blunt, you were grumpy, you were hangry, you were hungry, and you're angry, and all the things that we all have gone through in our lives. But when you walked through that door, I said, you know what? If he gets this job and he doesn't change, it's going to end up bad for him. And so you've obviously made that change. So I want to paint that picture to follow up. My question is, what is your daily routine, or how did you find a way to get to the energy, number one, and to sustain that energy throughout, almost be kind of like that even keel guy, not that spike guy?
Yeah, that's a great picture you paint, because when I think about it, I was locked in on that interview and then the crash came. So on a really simplistic level, sugar was a huge part of my life in 2015 and before. So it's weird to say, but like just straight up diet was a huge part of it. Let's start there. I mean, because you remember I wolfed down a few pieces of pizza and other assorted things, and kind of as a coping mechanism, perhaps. I mean, who knows? But in terms of the consistency, it's right. It's like I was a guy of extremes, right? So I used to say my Billy Joel song was "I Go to Extremes" was one of my favorite of his songs, and that's not a good thing. That was something I tried to celebrate, but who wants to be an extremist? And I think that I've gotten closer to being more consistent. In terms of what changed, let's start with diet. I gave a very simple example on one of my interviews that I did with Jeremy Sheetinger, where I have a 45-minute commute to work in the morning, and I do love the commute because I listen to podcasts, and that's how I kind of got into doing my own. But I would drink 2 tall glasses of coffee, cream and sugar. I mean, it's not going to crush you, but it was just a terrible start to my day. So by the time I got to school, the caloric intake, the sugar intake, by the time I got out of my car was high. So if you mixed in a third during the day, now you're just, before you even eat anything. So that just simple diet was a huge piece of it. In the summer, I started working out with a former player. He kind of took a mentor role with me, believe it or not, like you did. Except in this case, he was younger than me, which was kind of cool to see, because he went on, graduated from Bucknell, and he's in law school, and he's giving me some ideas on, we're going to coach this summer, but let's not coach together only. Let's do some workouts. So before games, we would go and work out. And he was just an animal. So he was doing workout to this day. I haven't duplicated, because when you're with someone like him, he's pushing you.
Yeah.
But when you put those pieces together, it just felt hard to relapse, right? So you cut out the sugar, you cut out the cream, you kind of make some good dietary choices. Now you're working out a couple times a week. Now you're coaching, you're moving, you're grooving. Now I'm hearing the great input from you. We're firing back up KWB Radio with a kind of a new focus. Let's be frank, you convinced me to interview for the Bronxville job. Now there's all this change thrown at me at once, but in ways that felt good. And for some reason, it just kind of caught fire. And I look back on it, it doesn't seem recognizable a year ago, which nothing I was afraid of was that big a deal when I look back. But at the moment, it seemed like the end of the world.
Yeah. I could tell a significant difference in you from a year ago, and I'm going to ask you some more questions here, a little bit to dig a little deeper. But I just want to kind of put my input, or kind of what my view looked like from my side of the table, because when you did walk in, to that house, to where we are sitting right now, just to look at you, you've dropped a significant amount of weight. Your energy is way up. I mean, I remember going over your house and you'd fall asleep on me at night, and you would have those up and down, spikes and stuff like that. You would get irritated more easily. I guess the easiest way to put it is you're easier to get along with, in terms of, because of the fact of you're not moody as much anymore. And we're all moody at times.
It's weird when you say it out loud, though. Like, when you say it out loud, it's like, it paints like a bad picture of the past, but I don't want to be ashamed of it. It's just kind of being excited about the future. But it seems very accurate what you're saying.
Yeah, and the same thing with me. I think we've all gone through those times, and this show is about you. Maybe one day you can flip the script and return the favor, and I can tell my story. But this is all about you. But that's the biggest thing a year ago, is the way you look, your energy, your outlook on life. Obviously, you're I feel like you're using your intellect, your brains, and your creativity in ways that they're better ways now. There's obviously the 1% Better podcast and the project and everything you're doing. That's a far cry from the guy that I know that was a baseball coach. Then you'd find him in the casino, and then now you're finding him here getting people better. And so let's start from the beginning. Let's start from that mid-December 2015, because you talked about a few things that you cut the sugar out, you did different things, but I know the listeners are wanting to know, like, how exactly did you do that? So walk us through, like, number one, why did you make that change? Was it because you got the job? Because you were a college coach at the age of 21, and so this high school baseball job is not below that, but you've already been in that spotlight. But fast forward however many years later, 15, 17 years later, and then all of a sudden now you got this Bronxville job. Why did you begin to change? Do you remember at any point after you got that job why you started in this direction to go to where you're at right now?
Wow. It's interesting. When we make drastic changes in our lives, the yearbook answer is that there's this one event. And sometimes there is a one event. But from my research and my reading, it's generally a series of things that make life changes. It can be a catastrophic thing. Thank God I didn't have any of that. I had more of the series approach. And I'll just give you some snapshots of things that resonated with me. When Jordan, the coach that was working with me, my former player, he would just use a sense of humor to be like, we're going to get diesel this summer. And like, I knew I wasn't getting diesel, but I was just like, all right, let's see what this guy's all about.
But before you go further, what made you go in there? I mean, you're flipping tires. Let's paint a picture. You're not just banging out 10 reps on the bench and then doing some buys and tries and going to the Jersey Shore. Like, what made you go in and do that?
I don't know. I can only give you a couple of things that are small moments that jumped out at me. I'll give you a couple. One, you had mentioned a college coach that you knew. I don't think I ever told you this, but a college coach that you knew that lost almost 100 pounds. Mm-hmm. And you said that made a huge life difference for him, how he felt in the uniform, how he felt with his players. He was trying to build a program, and he was giving them a book to read. And I actually took some of that, and I took the same book that you mentioned, gave that to my players to try to like mimic that. He was someone I had thought highly of from a distance. You said that. I didn't realize his kind of health had gotten out of control. So that's one snapshot. Believe it or not, I listened to an interview with a guy. I'll give him some credit. This guy named Adam Gilbert. He was on the Art of Charm podcast, and he said this phrase that really stuck with me. And he said, we all have a relationship with food. So when he said that, it was the right combination of words in the right order. And it was like, yeah, I have a serious relationship with food. So does everybody. But like a lot of my identity had always been connected to food. So I felt that, and it sounds weird to say, but like it sounds like, if you think about it, people that I know in my life, and still now, they'll ask me for food and wine recommendations. The difference is now I feel like it's under control and in a healthy way. But a lot of who I was in my mind was I'm the food and wine guy. So if I was eating a little bit of food, like that's not what I know of Joe. So, and if he doesn't know a restaurant, he's got to, and I felt like I had to go to restaurants to kind of keep up that reputation.
Because weren't you, way back in the day, didn't you write for a magazine? You were a restaurant review guy, weren't you?
I was doing some food reviews, some restaurant reviews.
So do you think that goes now people that don't know who you are or don't know the backstory, your parents own a restaurant, Cafe Ferrero. Do you think, and every time we go over to your parents' house, there is unbelievable food. It is top notch. Do you feel growing up in that environment led to that?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I had breakfast this morning thinking about that. Like, this holiday trip is coming to an end for me, and it's bittersweet because I'll spend less time with my family. But even with my new approach 2.0, I wasn't able to stave off all the delicacies that were available. So it's a pro and con. I mean, I guess I'm realizing why I'm talking to you now. It's like it's a lot cheaper than a therapy session. But if you think about it, like my relationship was directly and my identity directly tied to food, and trying to get it back to more of being more tied to education. And you said something in this very studio here where you said trying to get people to help people live a creative life. Like I'm fully confident saying I live like a tremendously creative life right now. Like I would go to my family party and annoy them this holiday season where I would say, hey, what are you working on in your life that's creative? And it would just stop the record and they just didn't know how to answer it. Yeah. And I wasn't trying to browbeat them. I said, well, that's something that should be a part of your life. Like I had one of my cousins say, well, I actually just recently stopped making pool cues. I was making pool cues for a while. I was like, that's exactly what you need to get back to. Like that must have been awesome. He's like, well, I think that's pretty creative. That's a totally different form of creativity. So I'm giving you like a rambling answer, but I don't have like a clean movie version moment. It's just these combination of things. And without a doubt, your influence, I don't know if you had a plan. You have a plan for most things. But in this case, just subtle things along the way that kind of pushed me.
Cool. There's always a plan. There's always a plan. Because I guess, what's the word for it? But the progress that you've made, the changes that you've made, it's made me happy. It's made me excited because that's the guy that I knew when I first met you when I was a freshman in high school, and you were the guy who mentored me. So for me, it's returning the favor because without you as a freshman, I'm probably not playing varsity. I mean, I had time at varsity as a freshman, and that at the time at our school wasn't really happening. And so I remember sitting on the bench at 16 years old with a bunch of 17 and 18-year-olds and intimidated. You're the person that came, put your arm around me, that leader, that vocal leader you're talking about. And you're the one who calmly told me that, how to settle into this role or how to be here and what to expect and what does that actually mean from the coach or what does that look like and stuff like that. So for me, it's always a plan, but I wanted that guy back because I felt, quite candidly, that guy had left for a little bit. He was still there, but he had gone a little bit. So now that's why I'm so excited to be here because I'm so glad you're sharing the story a little bit because people, I feel this is going to inspire others to be like, hey, we all have a purpose on this earth, and we're all here to impact others in a positive manner. You do that, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's on the pod, whether it's on your 1% Better project, whether it's on the baseball field, that kind of stuff. And, you brought up a little bit about, throwing things at your family. We were over the house for dinner the other night, and I don't know if you remember this, but you threw out to Sarah, my wife, saying that, what's your one word for 2017? So I'm going to ask you, what's your one word for 2017?
Fearless. And, I'm still not there yet. You know what I mean? I feel like I can't just say a word and then automatically be fearless January 1. You often write in your morning messages and kind of stamped on everything you do, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And, going back to the Bronxville interview, to anyone who's listening, it sounds ridiculous to be scared of going for a varsity job. But the program has no reputation, so you got to build it. And JV basically runs itself at this point after 10 years, so that was comfortable. I got a family at home, so I had to spend less time with them. I wanted to do things with media. So there's so many things that I got scared about that really don't sound rational, but at the time felt like the end of the world. So to take on that new risk and see if I can build a program and all these different things required getting past fear. So I feel like I'm on a good path to that. But when I pick a word for the year, it's supposed to drive the year. If I had it accomplished already, I wouldn't pick that word. So fearless is kind of my North Star. And I brought that into the classroom before the break. Every one of my 105 kids got access to that activity, trying to get them. And we'll have a bulletin board when we get back on the 3rd that'll have their words, and trying to kind of have that guiding light for what we want to do. So that's my word, and with work to do.
I think that's my favorite thing is, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And you're doing that. So we left off, not to go too far off, but we left off when you're flipping tires and you're in the weight room. I remember you asking me all these questions when you got the Bronxville job, like, but we only won whatever many games last year. How am I going to win games? And I feel like you were all focused on the wrong things at that time. Now you're focused on the better things. You're focused on the process a little bit more. So we're at flipping tires, working out. What was a typical day for you now that we get the Bronxville job? You're from the Bronxville interview, rather. You're down. You're spiking up and down. Now you get it. Now you're in the weight room. Now you're starting to get this climb up of consistency. You're starting to come back to life, so to speak, and you're starting to have a little more clarity. What was your daily routine like when you were in the gym, when you were coaching, you were teaching? Can you give us an example of that day?
Yeah, but I think it's important to underline the fact that it's like when you look for that one moment, you could point to the Bronxville interview. But the reality is there's still a lot of toxins that get out, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of the season was not my true self. And in fact, the way I remember it wasn't until June after the season was over. Or let me be a little more specific. I got kind of I don't know if I ever shared this story. I got kind of a wake-up call. I had three former players from Valhalla come back and watch me coach at Bronxville. Now, my players who I'd yet to form a relationship with at Bronxville, seeing 3 of my players come back on a rainy day in May to watch me coach Bronxville, a program I had just recently taken over, they commented afterwards in the nicest way possible about how we're going to be good if we can do X, Y, and Z, and the future is bright. But they also, I don't know how to put it, but they said something to the effect of, I hope you get to show them the true you. And I didn't understand. I almost took offense to it. I mean, there they are, these young kids, 19 years old. I'm not sure what you mean. Like, I'm being myself. And they said, well, no, just you seem different. I hope you take it the right way, but you seem different than when you coached us. And right now, when I look back on that, that's very obvious. But at the moment, I didn't want to hear that. I didn't take it personally because I was on the road to kind of getting better. But like, when I look back on it, it was such a powerful piece of advice where even after that, I wasn't myself yet. So at the year finished, we had a beautiful year-end ceremony. I kind of gave like some leadership points and some things. It was almost like the year was over. We didn't make the playoffs, which is hard to do. And I'm signed up to coach an elite summer league program with Jordan. And that's when we started getting serious. It was like the very end of Bronxville, people gave us a lot of thanks and praise on what we did, which looking back, I didn't want to take the praise because we didn't win a lot. We didn't do everything I wanted to do. There was more in the tank. And these guys kind of picked up on that. And then once I started the summer, I kind of went into this mode where Jordan was just going to force me into the gym, and I was ready. At that point, I was ready. Again, no specific moment, but just like a series of things that forced me to that. So this year when I went back, we're getting started now. I want to give them the true, my true self.
So I got two questions. First question, why did you take offense to that?
I'm not the most thick-skinned person. I've gotten better, but again, that's a journey. I think, to be honest, one thing I am pretty good at is being self-aware. So I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and we talk about it all the time. You turned me onto it as the balcony and the basement concept. My balcony and basement on sensitivity is I perceive things that others don't, right? I can feel body language more than others. I can tell when someone's in a bad mood. I can see when one of my students has had a tough day. That's all my advantages. But then the negative is sensitive to criticism, just easily offended sometimes. So when they said you didn't seem like yourself, that's like a very serious insult to how I heard it, because I want to be more authentic. So that was the answer to your question there.
So follow-up question 1.5. Do you feel the need, whether it was in Joe 1.0 or even a little bit to today, or even in the spring as you made that transition, do you feel a need to please everybody, or to please people, or to make sure everybody's taken care of, almost like that leader who wants everybody, everybody love everybody type of guy?
Yeah, so if I'm afraid to be offended, that's going to leak over to, I don't want to offend anyone else sometimes. And you can't live that way. You can't coach that way. You can't lead that way. Someone once said, I don't know the secret to happiness, but I know the secret to unhappiness, trying to please everybody. And I have that in me for sure. This year, since your words 2.0 has started, I've been less likely to do that. But those conversations from former players who knew me best, they would make a heck of a podcast if I brought them on, because they have now seen me since then and have remarked different things as well. So it's been a fun journey.
You brought something up on our podcast a while ago that has a lot to do with this. You were talking about your Manhattanville College days when you were a very young head baseball coach. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm paraphrasing here, but you were afraid to create relationships with your players in terms of get to know them a little bit more, in terms of what their likes and dislikes are. So that was definitely in Joe 1.0. I should say that's not even 1.0. That's Joe just growing up, just like we all are when we're young, trying to find our way in this world. But from your first coaching experience in terms of being scared to have those relationships, bond with those guys, to even as you were going through this transition in Bronxville in 2016, the spring of 2016, what was different in terms of your fear or lack thereof, or your confidence in creating relationships this time around?
Maturity is the key, I think, because when you start out in the world of teaching, there's these ridiculous people that tell you don't smile till Christmas, and they say you got to have discipline in the classroom, and you can't let these kids think that you're their friend. So you really don't have, or I didn't have, the ability to forge relationships without being too casual or friendly. So you go the other direction. As I've gone on now in year 18 in the classroom, I'm not going to say I've mastered it, but I feel extremely confident in the appropriateness of building relationships while still being an authoritative figure in the classroom. That's not a concern. When I get into a new environment with baseball now, with players that aren't the most talented, and it's a foreign community to me, I have not had an opportunity to kind of put down the roots, so to speak, in the investment with these kids yet. And it's only, I have to remind myself, it's not even year 2 yet. So it's there's still work to be done. But thinking back to what Carmine and Christian said, there's got to be 100% of me, so that if it fails because they got my best and it just wasn't meant to be.
I got you. No, that's good. So let's fast forward because we could tell the story for 3 hours, but we only have 1 hour here for the sanity of the people, and I think for you as well.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to be drained.
Let's go midsummer. Not a Midsummer Night's Dream, but let's go midsummer. And you did something that I thought was incredible. A lot of other people did too. I hope you kind of pick it back up a little bit here soon. But you started a blog, ferreronair.wordpress.com. And it was amazing. You've got posts up there. There's just amazing content up there for those who want to go check it out if you haven't already, or if you want to revisit it. But so this is midsummer. What made you do that? Do you remember what made you flip the switch on that?
I mean, my first instinct is you. I don't. That specifically started because of a silly post that I think Mike Rooney, a good friend of ours, posted, where a guy slid through someone's legs, or there was some crazy play on the internet, and I tweeted something along the lines of, if I had any guts at all, I would write a blog post on that. And that's just me kind of as still a defense mechanism, right? Saying, well, if I do that, it's almost like a joke rather than be so sincere about it. Like, because I think if you don't quote unquote try, then there's no risk of failure. So then I went in like at a very, like dipped my toes into the water there. And some people were very flattered about it, flattering comments. So one post led to two, led to three. And, but I don't know, I've always looked, at this point in my life, I've often looked to you, though, as someone that I wanted either approval from or guidance from or just some kind of nod that I'm going in the right direction, because you seem to be someone who just has an air of certainty about your purpose. And I've often said on KWB Radio that it's like I live multiple lives, like not sure what direction to go to. I have a lot of interest. It's weird because I theoretically have more interest than you. But at the same time, that should be a strength when you say it out loud. But then it's often been something that I've either gotten fearful of or like, oh man, if I have all these interests, which one do I follow? And I've often had a hard time kind of working that out. But the blog, that was how I started it. And I still don't do it as consistently as I'd like to. But I have gotten some nice feedback.
Yeah, it's incredible because I feel like it was showcasing a little bit more of who you are and what you are capable of. Because that's the thing I admire about you a lot is you have a lot of spokes in your wheel. I'm very niche. I know what I'm good at. Kind of like that Strengths Finder episode that we had and stuff you talk about here on 1%. Master your strengths, understand your strengths. Sounds like you're working through that a little bit to find out, okay, what's my niche? Because you are very well versed in a lot of things. Which, again, for a guy like me, I'm envious of that because you asked me where the best restaurant to go, or you asked me what books am I reading. And in fact, full disclosure, like you helped put more books in my new bookcase that I had over the holidays that I built. And first of all, you were putting down money that I wouldn't be able to do it on my own, and you motivated me to do that. But you also gave me Tim Ferriss's new book that's in there, and I'm going to read that. So I'm very grateful for that. But I'm always interested in people like you, and that's the reason why you continue. I want to inspire you, but you inspire me because there are a few more things that I could do to branch out, so to speak. Because again, what I do is very niche, and I'm self-educated, and I have a lot of mentors that help me from different areas. But I guess for me, you said it might be a detriment, but going into 2017, because I don't want to lose track, we got more 2016 to go, but 2017, do you have any plans to narrow it down a little bit? And, this 1% project is obviously a niche kind of deal.
I don't know. I still battle with the idea of what it is that I'm doing, right? I mean, you used to tease me about you got to put content out. And now I put a lot of content out. I mean, at least it feels like, I don't know if it's a lot. Something as simple as the infographic that I kind of put together of energy takers versus energy givers.
That was great.
I mean, I made that from scratch. So, I think people that are retweeting it, which is very flattering, they may not realize that, basically that was a blank canvas that I just dreamed up, put it together, executed it, and sent it. And that's really like the perfect metaphor for my at least second half of 2016. Like I didn't, if you remember how it went down, I didn't ask you for permission. I didn't say, does this look good? I didn't say, what color should I use? I didn't say, who should I tag in the photo? I actually texted you and said, I'm not going to tag you in this because if I know people are going to like this and it's going to add value, and I just want to let you know. And I felt really confident about it because I knew it was something that I believe in. I knew it was something that I created, and I kind of just invented it, right? Obviously borrowing inspiration from others along the way, and just put it out there. And it doesn't change the world, but in this small, weird way, people got something out of it and then shared it. And I would have never done that a year ago. I just never would have done it.
Why?
I would have been looking for validation. I would have been looking for validation from you. I would have been looking for, I don't know, am I stealing someone's idea? Is this corny? Is every single negative excuse in the book I would have been wondering about. Instead, as my social media presence has grown a little bit, as you've pushed me out of the nest to do my own interviews, I've stopped waiting for permission most of the time and just said, if this feels right, I'm going to send it out. And Seth Godin says ship it, and I shipped it, and it was something that was well received. And I want to look for less validation in 2017. I've come a long way, but something like that, there's no consequences if it's bad. But this time I knew that it was good. And I went with it.
Oh, I love it. So going back to 2017, we just covered the summer. You put the blog up. We have obviously started back on the podcast. But going back to school and teaching, and you always talked about the 3 levels in the summer, right? You had the June and then the July and the August, the bookends, the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday. But going into 2016 fall in your school year, which would have been your, how many years? 18th year. Was there anything that was different when you went into this past fall in 2016 in terms of the classroom, your mindset, your purpose, your process? Had anything changed?
Going into the classroom in 2016, the fall, year 18, utter confidence that what I did may not be the best. It certainly won't be the worst, but I was going to lean into it. So whatever I did, it was what I thought was from my heart, what was with a purpose. It was going to have a huge emphasis on why. I was going to be totally transparent with the kids. I said, everything we do, I'm going to tell you why we're doing this. There was no mystery of when I gave an assignment, what was this for? It was, I beat them to the punch. It was, hey, this is a writing activity, and this is the purpose. From a very technical standpoint in writing, this will be easy for people to relate to, audience and purpose. So, I actually adopted this like Mount Rushmore concept of what are the 4 or 5 key ideas that you have to get out of this year. And one of the ideas is always to have audience and purpose in mind. And that's no accident, spending all the time with you. I added maybe audience into it. You're a big purpose guy. But every assignment I gave them, I would put audience and purpose, and I would list it. So they would know this was being written for college. We talked about that right out of the gate, college essays. So in the fall, first assignment is writing their college essay. In fact, they have to arrive day 1 with a rough draft. And they're the most mild, bland essays ever because they're writing it to no one in particular. They're not writing it to Scott, who's the admissions counselor at Mount whatever college. That's what we try to get them to understand. You're trying to make this a complete communications class. So I teach English 12, but that doesn't mean anything. When you say English 12, that could be British literature, that could be American literature, that can be whatever, poetry class. I leaned in and said, no one can tell me that I can't make it a communications class. So essentially, I told them on the syllabus, the class in 2 words is communicate effectively. So everything we did was about how to make proper communication. That's my bread and butter. And rather than kind of be halfway in, I just went all in with it. So we still read books and articles, but we're always trying to figure out what the motive of the author is. Why did the author say it that way? So everything is through that lens. So that was a direct reflection of where I was at in my life, and they got to see that.
So a 2-part question. Part 1, why, like in Joe 1.0, were you such a rule follower?
I'm still a rule follower. There's no doubt about it. But I like these, I hate to call them tests, but like personal development surveys and personal development tests, things like I took a highly sensitive test once and like broke the tool. Like I was so highly sensitive. I'd like to take it again actually and see if I'm still as highly sensitive. But recently I took one from, if you're interested, Gretchen Rubin does this thing where she's like, are you an obliger, a questioner, a rebel, or an upstander? And I was a straight up questioner. And when you hear it, it sounds like someone who's asking like the annoying questions, doesn't want to ever do anything. But now I learned that it's more of just getting to why, what you always talk about, and trying to understand like why we're doing something and trying to find the best solution and getting. So I'll follow the rules. That would be an obliger would follow the rules, but now I'm straight up a questioner, very firmly in there, where it's like, if you need me to do this, if my boss needs me to do something, I'll definitely do it. But I always work best when I know why we're doing it. I'm very allergic to busy work. Like when I'm out sick, which is very rare, as you know, I never give the kids a worksheet. It's absurd. It's just, I'm giving you busy work because I'm homesick with the flu. I don't do that. So they respect that a lot. It's like when I give you an assignment, there's a good reason. I don't give homework because homework's a good idea. I give homework because this is what we need to get covered and here's the why. So you might not like it, but that's why we're doing it. So again, feeling very comfortable in my classroom, trying to transfer that over to 1%, which you can tell that I'm getting more comfortable there. And also, I would say if you're going through the same thing, trying to be your best self in all the arenas.
Right. Interesting. That's fascinating for me. So part 2 of this, I gave you part 1. So part 2, what were the results that you saw? Did the results differ at all coming into school, questioning that why, pushing yourself, not only yourself, but pushing those kids, going outside of the curriculum, kind of doing your class the way that you want to teach and to run your class with, again, staying in the lane, so to speak, but you're also kind of, you're going into the bumpers a little bit more and expanding. Have you seen a difference in the way they learn and the way they react and the way they take responsibility?
Well, last June at the year-end barbecue, one of the staff members asked me, like, well, if I had to write my retirement speech now, what would I write? What kind of ideas would I include in it? And one of the things I immediately told him was I wish I could do more. And he took that very strangely. He took that in a way where, like, I wasn't giving myself enough credit. And maybe there is something to be said there, but I just think that at the end of my teaching career, no matter how many kids I influence, I want to make sure I reach more. I just don't think you can get enough. So to answer your question, by leaning into it and the mentoring piece of it and the communication piece of it and the showing clear value, I'm going to be honest with you, I still haven't gotten 105 kids. Like I feel like at the end of the day, like the difference is I don't hold myself to that standard, which is impossible, right? To reach all 105. I'm going to keep trying. But in the past, it would be like I would take it personally if I didn't get to a couple of kids. Now I'm making deep relationships and deep marks on some of the kids. All you have to do as a kid, if you're a student, is step forward, right? I mean, just take one step towards me. I'm taking 5 steps towards you. You take one step toward me, and then I'm there for you. There's still kids that will stay stationary or walk away, and they're just looking to kind of get through, graduate, move on. The reality is by the time you get to 12th grade, some kids have some deep impressions of learning and learning process that I can't undo for everyone. But the kids that walk forward and the kids that actively listen, I'm able to connect with. And I mean, a lot of meetings after class, a lot of meetings after school where they ask me about non-curriculum things. But they always the funny part is they're always tied back to the curriculum. So I'll mention an article in the middle of class and they'll go and read the article and they'll say, I read that article you mentioned. And sometimes it's not even the article from the curriculum. It's something I mentioned that might connect to it. And then they'll meet with me and they'll say, I had a kid, for example, the other day say, I want to write this letter to someone. I'm wondering if you could look at it. Nothing to do with school. And it's just those are the moments where you know that you've got them. So I'm increasing those numbers. And then that kind of gets that big flywheel rolling and the momentum. Now this kid sees it in one person and just constantly experimenting, constantly trying to reach new kids with different methods.
So you're obviously passionate about what you do, just like I feel like I am in what I do. And knowing you for as long as I have, that passion's always been there, whether it's on the playing field, as a teacher, as recommending wine or food. I think people have started to kind of get to know you a little bit more. So I want to push it a little bit beyond the classroom and get back to you. So we're in the fall of 2016. You're back at school. Did you feel like there was any more time spent on your end trying to influence those kids, influence yourself? Did you try to make any changes to your family? What were things that you're going through this transition yourself? But I know this because obviously we talk a lot too. There's a transition that I've gone through over the years, and I feel like just like you're in a leadership position, you're in a mentorship position, you want to help people. Was there any extra energy or time spent on yourself, your personal growth? Any extra time spent mentoring those kids in the classroom? Any extra time spent talking with your family or doing things or suggesting things?
Yeah, I mean, definitely more time spent. In August, my whole family took a trip to the Dominican Republic at the end of baseball. A chance to kind of unwind, connect as a family. Spent a lot of time coaching baseball, traveling the tri-state area and beyond last summer. But my wife and I made a commitment that we wanted to have a routine in place, things that she needed and wanted, things that I wanted and needed, so that we could have the kids off to a good start and the school year off to a good start. So we actually took a page out of your book and some other leadership people and planned out what a September morning would look like, from the alarm clock to bedtime for everyone.
So what did that look like?
Well, it's funny because it's been tweaked a little bit, and we don't use the template as much, but it's now become autopilot.
What would it look like in September? Let's start there.
Yeah, so September is Dana wakes up at 4:20, goes to the gym. She's a morning gym person. People constantly say to her, "Man, I wish I looked as good as you do after 2 kids." And she gets kind of like, she laughs about it. She's like, "You can. Like, you have to wake up at 4:20 in the morning, go to the gym, and then go to a full day of work." She's a working mom. So she gets up at 4:20. She grabs her stuff, goes to the gym. When I go downstairs, my alarm clock goes off at 5:30. So 5:30, both kids are still sleeping. I go downstairs. The coffee's made. Or depending on the type of coffee of the day, I may be.
That's another show.
Yeah, go French press, but it's mostly made. And she has the kids' clothes laid out. She has them in piles. She has usually a note every day, wishing me luck, wishing something to the kids. Their lunches are all set. We've made the lunches on a Sunday night for the week already. She's the bedrock. But the fun part is between 5:30 and 6:30, I have to leave the house. So it sounds like a lot, but what has to happen in that time is I have to eat breakfast. I have to get my coffee going. I have to wake both kids. I have to get their teeth brushed. I have to get them dressed. I have to get them in the car. We have to head to the gym.
So hold on, I'm going to stop you. What does breakfast look like in September of 2016 compared to September of 2015?
2015 was a chocolate bar of some sort that was vaguely disguised as a protein bar. A cup of coffee, cream and sugar, with a second in my other hand, no water, and I think that was it, yeah.
So 2016 was that?
2016 is black coffee, still 2 of them, but black coffee, a Swell bottle on my bedside table, drink water before I get downstairs. Downstairs, get the coffee going a little bit. Breakfast is either a combination of a Cliff Bar and some type of hard-boiled egg concoction that she makes that's like a whole wheat wrap with egg whites, something along those lines. And then when I get to school, the rest of the snacks are kind of planned out. So I have almonds at this time and more water in the Swell bottle, et cetera, et cetera.
What did school food in 2015 look like for you? Did you have any? Did you bring any? Did you buy any?
No, don't eat again until 1 o'clock from breakfast. Maybe a cup of coffee at 11 with cream and sugar from the Keurig. Then eat at night, a huge dinner. Now it's kind of planned out snacks in the classroom. I still don't like water, full disclosure, but I drink it now.
Why is that?
I just don't. I don't know. I think my taste buds have been scarred for life. I look for the savory, so now it's like water is a pure necessity. But The trick for people, if you're listening, that don't like water, by the way, this is going to sound crazy, but when I get into the cold brew coffee, I'll drink that in the morning as my second cup. And then when that's done, there might be like a centimeter of cold brew, and I fill that jar up with water. So the water is water that tastes like coffee.
Oh,
so it actually smells and tastes like coffee.
Someone's going to take that idea and run with it and create a business now.
Sorry. So just give me a lifetime supply of it. But what's funny is and anyone who's listening, you probably can relate to this. You still don't have margin for error. Like you talk all the time about margin for success. We still are battling with that. Like I'm dropping the kids off at 6:30 in the gym parking lot, kissing them goodbye. Dana takes them to daycare before school, preschool, and then I'm off and she's off. There's no 10-minute margin there otherwise she's getting up at 4. So we're trying to find that balance still where it's like we have a moment to connect in the morning. So by no means do I want to mislead anyone listening that it's perfected, but it's what's working for now. And, one of the things I mentioned to you is that, in the morning when my alarm clock goes off, first of all, I changed it from the ungodly beeps to a Lumineers song, which is very soothing. That's a little 1% tip. And then I try to read something either from Ryan Holiday or from your morning message if it's there early enough, or just different short things before I start checking Twitter and email. Trying to let the first thing in my mind be non-email related, non-news. Forget about the news. The news is no part of my 2016, but we'll talk about that another time. But so that's a snapshot.
So that was September of this year. So going into the new year, 2017, you mentioned a little bit. It's a little different now. What's different about it?
Let's see. So right now we're working out with Bronxville in the weight room twice a week. That'll amp up a little bit now that we get going, but who knows what kind of talent we'll have this year, but we want to make sure we step forward. So one of the things we did is put a strength and conditioning program in. And rather than in the past where I would want to make sure I'm in this administrative role, I'm working out with the kids. So they get to see me. A lot of them have commented that I've lost weight, which is always cool to see, that I'm in better shape. But just being in the trenches with them, being that type of coach for this particular team seems to work. They're a very young team. We'll have 2 seniors. And it just seems to work, right? I'm supervising, but I'm in there with them. I'm also being fair to myself because I need to get a workout in. And that kind of camaraderie is helping to build relationships. So I'm trying to do different things with them. So that'll happen. I still won't get home till late at night where my wife is the key because she's getting the kids ready for bed and I'm getting home just in time to tuck them in. So I still don't have a perfect routine, but the breakfast is similar. I've substituted in, cold brew for hot coffee, whatever, as the weather changes. But for the most part, nothing major.
We've got a couple more minutes left here in this absolutely awesome episode, man. I can't thank you enough for sharing this because you're not the only one going through this. I know there's a ton of value that people are going to be able to take from this because most everybody has jobs. A lot of them have families and kids and trying to fit in time throughout the day. It's the famous saying is, the biggest excuse is I don't have time. Well, make the time like you guys are doing and like you're doing. You're finding time. You're getting up earlier, whether it's a half hour earlier. You're changing your routine a little bit. You're finding time to do the things that are what you want to do. You feel like is best for you. So I got 2 more questions for you. And the first one kind of revolves around, you mentioned the word consistency, consistent. What does that word consistent look like for you? Can you paint us a picture of what that looks like?
I'll give you something very tangible. This summer when we were in the Dominican Republic, I was reading a book by Scott Adams. This is a great title, How to Fail at Nearly Almost Everything and Still Succeed. It's a must-read book, by the way. But one of the things that he says is we look at fitness and working out all wrong. And actually, a lot of the things that he does, I kind of adopted as well. But one of them that's key is you asked me what my workout looked like today. And I told you my philosophy is my workout today was designed in such a way that I want to go back tomorrow. And that's so countercultural, right? Get one more rep and you should be sore. If you're not sore, it's not worth working out. And there's probably some science to that. But me getting to know myself, I can't function the next day. if I'm doing that route. But if the goal is the process, if that makes sense, if the goal is to get there, if the goal is to be back tomorrow, that's consistency. So I don't have goals of, it's funny, you've asked me how much weight I've lost. I've never really got into the numbers because I have been weighing myself just to make sure I'm still making progress. But the goal has always been to just change lifestyle, just to change the habits. It's never been to have the clothes fit differently. It's never been a weight loss. If you pushed me, I could tell you, I still have a ways to go. Like I still want to lose more weight. But it's really more about staying the course and just seeing what'll happen. And it's a good metaphor for the whole year. If I just keep putting out content for 1%, people will notice. If I keep doing my best with the hosting of KWB, people will notice. So consistency is exactly that. It's what are we doing tomorrow? It's I did it today, but if I don't do it tomorrow, it's no good. And I'll tell you the other part of that. I've eaten like this is my last week on earth. But guess what? The third, I'm changing. That's the whole key. It's going back now. So yeah, I didn't have the best habits when I was home visiting my family, but it's truly a once a week. It's 1 week out of 52. That would have sabotaged me in the past, but I've seen the results, and I've seen. I don't want to say how easy it is to get back on track because that doesn't make it fair to everyone else. But I know the steps that I need to take, and the path to consistency is a lot clearer now to me. So today I'm going to enjoy myself. I'll be honest. My dad's making prime rib, so like I'm not going to not have that. You know what I mean? But
invite.
So I think that's going to happen. But then starting tomorrow, back in the gym, travel back to Connecticut with my family, and full disclosure, my wife has already printed out a 150-page program that she wants to follow in the new year. She's another story for another day. Like
she's awesome.
She's tremendously consistent, and without her, none of this happens because. One of the most amazing quotes I've ever heard was this week, and it said, "You must not lie in bed with someone who has different dreams." I mean, you talk about a quote for someone who's thinking about getting married or starting a relationship. Wow. So we have the same dreams, and she supports my dreams. So even if the dreams are a little different, she supports them, and I'm actually looking forward to getting back to clean eating.
No, you remind me of a quote that. It's a famous quote. Can't remember. You may even know who said it, but the start is what stops most people. And so for you talking about getting back into it, you've already started it and you've kept it consistent throughout 2016. So for you to take a week off, 5 days, 7 days, 8 days to get back on, you said January 3rd, you've already started it and kept it going. So it's a lot easier rather than the first time. Just you starting it the first time was way more difficult, right? Than just trying to pick it back up. So that came to mind right away. My last question. This has been awesome. I hope I've been a good host for you because this has been enjoyable just to watch you go through it, the year 2016. So my last question is, what does 1% mean to you? The name of this is the 1% Better Project. You changed your email, you changed your Twitter, your background, everything. What does 1% mean to you? Because I think a lot of people are interested to hear what it means to you.
Yeah, I want to write something down so I don't forget it because my favorite book title of all time, forget about the content, which is also good, but my favorite book title of all time is a Jim Collins book, Good to Great.
It's in my bookshelf, buddy.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's a red cover, and I will check it out before I leave studio.
All because of you. It's in my bookshelf.
It's the title, right? And when a lot of this is a great opportunity for me to go back and thank you because when you exposed me to the Strengths Finder, when you exposed me to kind of reminding me of what I could become, Good to Great is that idea of the maximizer. And one of my 5 strengths that came up was maximizer. And the maximizer tries to take ideas and people that are good and help them be great. That's the 1% project in its shortest form, right? And I see it in 2 different lanes. I see lane number 1, kind of what seems to be mundane things, better coffee, the better pillow, the best pen, the best notebook, the best app. I still think there's some tremendous value in there. I do. I think life's too short to worry about that too much. But at the same time, if I have a knowledge of what is the best red wine with prime rib, I get a kick out of sharing it. So I'm going to keep sharing that in 2017. In fact, I'm going to lean further into it. But the other avenue is the law of marginal gains. It's making sure that you go to bed 1% better than you woke up. And the reason I'm so attracted to that number is it's not scary. And if we're going to talk fearlessness, there's just no one that can look you in the eye and say, I can't get 1% better today. There's no one that can say, I can't do that drill 1% better. There's no one that can say, oh, I know I'm drinking, diet soda, but I could switch to black iced tea. These changes over time, they transform your life. And it's I don't want to use the word scary. It's more like I'm going to be giddy about the possibilities of doing this show a year from today. I don't know if we'll recognize each other in a year. But, one of the things that I wrote about recently with the 1% Project is just, there's no way to do it without seeming like you're self-promoting. But just the idea that anyone listening, you don't know what a year is going to show. Like, there's just no way I would have said, I'll have 740 Twitter followers who actually care, or I'll have 15 blog posts, or, Kevin will support me enough to go out and do my own interviews with people in the wine industry, or a leader, or a coach at my school, and I'll do an infographic, and I'll just see there's just no possible way that I would have envisioned that a year ago. So how can I sit here on the microphone and say, oh, I know what next year is going to be. I already have it mapped out. I already know exactly my limits. I know what I'm going to reach. It would be ridiculous. So that's why I picked the word fearless, to just go lean further in, to be more risk taking, to try to deepen my relationships, to do every single piece of it. Instead of coming up with 3 New Year's resolutions, just pick that word that is going to drive everything for the year. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of I don't want to say I'm drained, because that would go back to 1.0. But you've caused me to do a lot of deep thinking on the microphone, and you've caused me to do a lot of transformation off the microphone. So I have to sincerely thank you for the guidance that you've given in a way that never felt like pressure. I don't know how you did it.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy. I don't know how I did it either. I don't know exactly what I did, but I love where you're at. I love the transformation. I'm excited as well for 2017 to kind of see what you do, because you surprise me just like you surprise everybody else. I don't know what you're putting out, and I love that aspect of it, because I draw inspiration from it just as much, if not more, because of our relationship. And I've seen you, again, going all the way back to high school, where that was the guy that I looked up to, and I still look up to. So for me, it's cool to be able to be on your 1% Better Project train, have a seat on that bus, so to speak, to be able to do it, live it, breathe it, see it, be inspired by it. And I guess I definitely lied to you. I like to trick you sometimes, but do you have anything that you wanted to add to this episode here that I didn't cover? Something, a message that you came in with that as everybody puts down their phone or they turn off their computer after listening to this, they're going to walk away knowing that you said everything that you wanted to say?
I recently put out a piece of content with that Mark Twain quote, and it said, "It ain't what you know. It ain't what you don't know that hurts you. It's what you know that just ain't so." And you'll see that. If you can reflect on that quote, you'll see that everywhere around you. It's the idea that these people around you have of problems that don't exist. There's a way to view the world that you'll start seeing if you open your eyes to it, where people just make assumptions that that's the way it is and that's the way it has to be. One of my least favorite quotes in the whole world is, "It is what it is." It's almost never correct. That quote is almost never correct. And I found myself using it twice, maybe all year, where I really felt like it applied. But my lot in life right now seems to be ignoring "it is what it is" and trying to make it better. I mean, there's just got to be a way. That is such a phrase that has infected the society, where we just say it and then we just accept. But how many things in your life couldn't it be 1% better right now? I mean, it's just, there's just almost nothing. So it is what it is rubbish. So don't come up with, I would say if you're listening still, and I appreciate it, I mean, don't come up with limitations on what you can achieve this year. Maybe have a crazy, wild, audacious goal that you have, but then get away from that goal, forget about it, and just take steps forward every day. Get 1% better every day. You know the numbers if you're a math person. It's like 350% improved by the end of the year. But it's just about the next day. Your workout today allows you to get back there tomorrow. Your diet today, circle back to the diet conversation. Adam Gilbert said, if you can't, and people listening to this right around the new year, if you can't imagine doing your diet 5 years from now, don't start. You know, because you're going on these crash diets, and can you do that in 5 years? Well, no, once I get settled, I'll go off of it. No. You need to be able to think, can I do this every day? And if you're lucky enough to have a wife or a partner that supports you like I do, you know that that's going to be part of the long-term thing. So it's been fun. It's been exciting. I'm still working on being more fearless, and I hope you pick a word of the year that kind of speaks to you.
Well, like I said, I can't thank you enough, man, for allowing me to be the host on this awesome episode. And I thank everybody for listening, for sticking around to the very end, because you guys got 1% better, definitely, with Joey Jett, my buddy at the end there. So thanks as always, Joe. Appreciate the opportunity, man. I appreciate our friendship. Appreciate everything you provide to me and my family and to all of our listeners. And until next time.
Yeah, until next time, I hope you guys get 1% better. And Kev, thank you for doing this, man.
Oh, you're welcome, buddy.
All right.